Customers can use the alerting feature to configure alerts that will notify their team when one or multiple criteria are met. Now, customers use this feature for use cases like alerting their team when anomalous emissions events occur, for notifying their teams when new data is coming into the product. For example, a new flyover or GHG satellite survey comes into the product, as well as for notifying them when there's changes in operational data. They see changes in that data streaming into the product. So the first page that we'll show you for this feature is our alert configuration page. This is where you define all of those criteria that will notify your teams when they are met. Now you can see here, you can have a selection of alert configurations, and those can be based on one or multiple criteria and span over multiple facilities as well as multiple devices. Now I'll go through the process of creating an alert configuration. So I'll call this alert test Jonah, so I can name my alert. Obviously, you'd likely go with something a little bit more specific than that. Then I can define, for my first condition, what facility this alert is going to apply to. So I'll go with my Bay Cliff facility. And then the next thing is you to decide what kind of device type you want to alert on. So this is just a way to sort of refine your device list. So I'm going to go with my emissions monitor device. Then what will happen here is that this device list will be filtered to only your emissions monitors at that facility. So I'll go with Cube 1. Once I've selected the device, I can choose what measurement from this device I want to alert on. So this device only has emissions rate, but if this device had multiple different measurements they could take, say wind speed and wind direction, I could also have selected those to define a alert on. So now we've selected the device and the measurement. Next, we need to set the condition that the alert is monitoring for. So the first step of that is picking your aggregation function. We have a selection of aggregation functions. You use average, count, max, mean, min, or sum. I'll go with average for this use case. Then you have to pick your operator. So you have the options of equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. For this use case, I'm going to go with greater than or equal to. And then I get to define the threshold. So the threshold is basically the limit that the aggregation function is compared against. So I will say that my limit is 5 kilograms per hour. Next, I need to find my window. So this is how long this aggregation function should be assessed over. So I'm going to do that for 30 minutes. So what I've defined here is that for this cube sensor reading emissions rate, if the average emissions rate is greater than or equal to 5 kilograms per hour for 30 minutes, then send me an alert. I can also define a duration. So it would be how long this condition needs to be true for. In this case, I will just leave that for 0. I can also add additional conditions. So this gives your team a lot of flexibility to stack on multiple conditions and really customize these alerts. For this use case, I will just leave this to a single condition. And I'll go next. Next, I need to define who receives this alert. So I will type in my name. And now that I'm a recipient, every time this alert is triggered, I will receive an email. Now, currently, our alerting feature is only delivering alerts through email. However, by the end of Q3, we'll also be delivering through text. So I can say done. And now this is my sort of summary of this alert test Jonah and those conditions that I defined. Now I can switch over to my alerts tab. The alerts tab is what Validere users will use to see all of the alerts they're subscribed to. So on this tab, they can see a list of all the alerts they could possibly be interested in. Now, how operators are notified that a new alert has come in is through emails from the Validere alerting service. So I'll switch over to my email here. And you can see each time a new alert comes into the Validere platform, operators are sent an email from the service. And in that email, there's some information around that alert. So you can see that there is a new satellite survey. This is an example of a new satellite survey for ClearNest Prod that happened on April 1st. Within the alert overview, you can see what alert configuration was triggered, what time it was triggered at, as well as the alert condition that was satisfied. So this is one that triggers every time a new measurement comes in. Then, as a user, if I want to manage that alert, I can click Manage Alert. And that will automatically open up that alerting instance so that I can go in and see the information around this alert and address it if required. So here, this is taking me into this new satellite survey for Clearness Prod. I can see it, as the email said, this happened on April 1st at 8 a.m. And I can see a little bit of information around this alert. What device captured this alert, what facility was taken at, the location of the alert, as well as the provider of the measurement that triggered this alert. Now, if I go down, I can see on my alert readings tab, I can see the actual measurement that triggered this alert, as well as the location of the alerting device. So here I can zoom in and I can see that this GHG satellite survey came in at this location. Now, this is an example of a very simple alert, alerting every time that a new measurement comes in. However, alerts can become much more complex based on the requirements your team has. So here I'll go into this probable unlit flare at Yellow Bridge. And this is an example of an alert that has multiple conditions. So here, this first condition that must be met is that the mean methane concentration over the last 60 minutes must be greater than 90 ppm. So once again, we can see a little bit of metadata around this alert, as well as the readings that triggered this first condition and the location of that monitor. As you can see here, you can also see other monitors that are not alerting for this period. Now, using this context switcher, I can switch over to my second condition. I can see the other condition that must have been met for this alert was that the mean temperature over the last 60 minutes must have been less than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. All of these things are indications that the flare at Yellow Bridge is unlit. So this is a good example of layering on your emissions data for your methane concentration with your operational data, like the temperature of a flare that maybe is coming from SCADA, to really drive complex alerts and give your team flexibility to operationalize your measurement data. Once again, we can see the alert readings for the temperature that exceeded that condition. And lastly, we have a third condition that's required here, and that is that the max flow rate over the last 120 minutes is greater than or equal to 100 meters cubed per hour. So that means we are sending product to the flare, the temperature is not hot, and the emissions rate has spiked. All of these things indicate that there's a probably unlit flare at Yellow Bridge. So these are just some examples of the flexibility that you have with the alerting service to generate really customized alerts based on not only emissions data, but also operational data. And with any alert, your team has the ability to address these alerts. So here, this is an open alert, which means no one's addressed it. You have the ability to close it and provide a reason for why this alert may have been closed. Potentially, this is an invalid alert, or there was some maintenance in progress, and these reasons are configurable for your customer.